everyone, I am Ragini Entry and let's discuss about the question answers from the chapter Human Health and Diseases. So let's get on to it. So the incurious things that we find in this chapter is the common diseases in humans and the various sources of contamination that leads to the diseases and the vectors. Vectors are agents that help in the spread of the diseases. It also gives us knowledge about immunity in human and how to fight against these diseases. So this chapter also gives us idea about cancer and AIDS. That is a brief knowledge about drugs, its sources, and it also can be learned from this chapter. So the mark weightage for this chapter is 3% weightage in NEET, and then the unit 8 as a whole has 14 marks in the NEET examination. The topics that are being covered in this test is that common diseases is human and immunity, AIDS, cancer, and then drugs and alcohol abuse. So let's get into the question and answers. So this is the first question. So what do you mean by metastasis? So metastasis is a topic from the cancer. So it is a topic from the cancer. So we have cancer. So cancer are cells that are growing uncontrollably. So cancers are cells that are growing uncontrollably. So these cells, what will happen is that they will go into tumor, will leads to tumor. So when tumor can be of two types, benign and malignant. So benign tumors are confined to single region in the body, whereas malignant tumors can travel. They can reach the bloodstream and colonize other parts of the body. And this characteristic of malignant tumor, that is to travel and reach other parts of the body. So it will reach all the parts of the body through bloodstream. So this is called as metastasis. So next question. So here, why is that once a person starts taking alcohol or drugs, it is difficult to get rid of this habit? This question states that how a person gets addicted to the alcohol or drugs. So addiction is a physiological statement. So they are being addicted to drugs and alcohols. So this alcohols or drugs will provide us some effects such as euphoria. Euphoria means excitement, an increased excitement and a temporary feeling of well-being. That is, one feels that they are good. So that's not a real feeling. Okay, so this is associated with drugs and alcohol. So when one gets addicted to drugs and alcohol, they get euphoria and temporary feeling of well-being. So these drive people to take them even when these are not needed. So this is how addiction works. So most of the drugs that are used will bind to brain and neurons, and the repeated use of the drugs will lead to increase in tolerance level. So our brain would say take more of the drugs. So more drugs will the receptors will respond to the drugs. Okay, so consequently what happens is that the receptors respond only to higher doses of drugs. So that's how when addiction starts, there will be increase in dosage of drugs and alcohol. So another main point you have to write here is withdrawal syndrome. So this syndrome states that if you don't take a particular drug or alcohol for a single day, you get a withdrawal syndrome. So this syndrome causes anxiety and then will lead to make the person take more of drugs and alcohol. So that's how we get from this question how it is difficult to get rid of this habit. So the next question. So name the diagnostic test which confirms typhoid. So we have this diagnostic test. So the typhoid is caused by Salmonella typhi. So when this Salmonella typhi infects our body, there is antibody production. So there is antibody production. As you have studied in the later part of the chapter, antibodies are produced when there is a pathogen in the bloodstream. So when Salmonella typhi infects your body, there is antibody production. So when using this antibody produced, there's a test called Vidal test. So this test measures the antibodies produced in the body against Salmonella typhi. So if antibodies are present, the person has typhoid. If the antibodies are not present, there is no typhoid. So that's how the Vidal test works here. Next, let's go to the next question. So breastfed babies are more immune to diseases rather than bottle-fed babies. So you're expected to explain why breastfed babies are more immune to diseases. So here we see that there is a colostrum. So the colostrum is secreted by the mother, and this colostrum has antibodies IgA. So this antibody IgA will protect the infant. So thus the infant gets immunity. The next question is, what is the cause of shivering in malaria patients? Before going into this, let's see the life cycle. So life cycle is that when Plasmodium infects the mosquito. The Plasmodium first is present in the mosquito's salivary glands and it produces sporocytes. So when these sporocytes enter into the human when a mosquito bites. So when it enters through the liver. So when it enters to the liver, it has many cycles and at last there is the lysis of the blood. So there is a lysis of the blood which is one of the cycle, and this lysis of the RBC will lead to release of hemozoin, which is a toxin. Hemozoin is a toxin. So hemozoin is a toxin. So this toxin will lead to shivering and high fever in the infected individual. So the next question, what are allergens and how do they cause inflammatory reactions in the patient's body? So here we have two questions. What are allergens? You must first answer what are allergens and how do they cause inflammatory reactions. So the question is of two parts. So allergens, what are allergens? Allergens are substances that cause allergy. So what is allergy? Allergy is when a person has exaggerated immune response is called allergy. So when a person has exaggerated immune response, that is high immune response than the natural immune response, is called allergy. So the substances that cause allergy are called allergen. So allergic reaction. So this is the first part. So what define allergen? So the substances that cause allergy are called allergen. So you have to first mention what is allergy and then what is allergen. So the next part, allergic reaction is due to release of two substances, histamine and serotonin, which is produced by mast cells. So mast cells produce histamine and serotonin, and there is an antibody, so which is produced by B cells usually, which produce the antigen produced during allergic reactions is IgE. So there are three major points. One is histamine and serotonin from the mast cells, and the B cell produces IgE. So these three are the main points you have to write in the second part of the question. Now let's move to the next question. Here we have the question is, what are carcinogens? So what are carcinogens? What are the different types of carcinogens and the treatment of the cancer? So we have three questions, 1, 2 and then 3. So first let's see what are carcinogens. So carcinogens are agents that cause cancer. They are called carcinogen. So we have to mention what is cancer, and the agents that cause cancer are called carcinogen. So we saw about cancer in previous questions, that is the tumor cells that are multiplying in a fast way, or will lead to the production of cancer. So agents that cause cancer are called carcinogen. So the types of carcinogens are of three types: physical, chemical and biological. So physical, we have UV rays, which is non-ionizing, and then ionizing are X-rays and gamma rays. And chemicals, we have various chemicals, and tobacco is said to have the chemical that causes the cancer. And we have biological here. Biological is mainly viruses that cause cancer. Now the third part, treatment. So treatment is usually by surgery, radiation, and this is like tumor cells. Sorry for the spelling mistake, it is tumor cells, and which are irradiated in radiation therapy. Irradiated means they are passed with radiations which target the cancer cells and does not target the normal cells. And the last one is immunotherapy. So immunotherapy is chemotherapeutic drugs. So we have drugs that mainly target different types of cancer. So we have different drugs for different types of cancer. So these are chemotherapeutic drugs. So the chemotherapeutic drugs will have side effects also. So side effects include shedding of hairs, etc. So we have to write what is cancer, and agents that cause cancer is called carcinogen, and then types of cancer are physical, chemical and biological, and mention its types. And treatment, in treatment we have surgery. Surgery is biopsy, that is removal of the cancer by surgery, and radiation, and then immunotherapy. The final question here is the structure of antibody. So the structure of antibody molecule is shown here. So we have to identify what is A and what is B, and then which cell produce these chemicals, and then function of these molecules. So let's see what is the answer. So answer is A is light chain, B is heavy chain. So we have here A is light chain. So this is light chain and this is heavy chain. So that's the first one, okay? And the second one is, what type of cells do the produce these antibodies is B cells. There are two types of immune cells, B cells and T cells. So B cells produce antibodies. So they produce antibodies, and T cells does not produce any antibodies, but they help B cells to produce antibodies. Okay, and the function of these molecules. So antibodies are released in response to pathogens. So they help in elimination of pathogens by binding to them. So this is the answer for all the questions and the summary of this chapter. That health is not just the absence of disease, it is state of complete physical, mental, social and physiological wellness. So there are diseases like typhoid, cholera, pneumonia, fungal infections, and then malaria. So and many other diseases are also present and major cause of distress to human beings. So disease is a major cause of distress. So vector-borne diseases. So I said vector is an agent through which the disease spreads. So malaria. Malaria's vector is mosquito. So vector-borne diseases, that is the diseases that are dependent on a vector, is malaria. So which is caused by Plasmodium falciparum. So this may lead to fatal if not treated. And besides, how do you prevent diseases? You have to be clean and hygiene, and there should be proper disposal of waste, and contamination of drinking water should be controlled, and vectors like mosquitoes should be eliminated, and immunization should be done, and these all will prevent the spread of diseases. So about our institution,